Most of us think about self-betrayal as what happens in relations with other people. Like when we are people-pleasing or saying yes when we should say no, or just putting others' needs before our own. But I just had a very interesting experience the other day that really made me understand how much self-abandonment happens when I'm in my own company. It was nothing special, but I was just walking around in my neighborhood doing some errands, running some errands. And I felt so good. I just smiled at the strangers that passed me by, and I was small talking with the cashiers and feeling, when you're just really joyful and confident and you carry yourself like that. Like nothing can come in your way, nothing can harm you. And I just walked around like that, and I felt so good. I could see the people really lightening up from the smiles I gave them, and I just spread happiness all around by doing nothing special. But the special thing about it was, it made me think, wow, this feels so me. This is who I am. I love me when I am like this. So why am I not like this all of the time? And that question stayed with me when I got back home. And I really started reflecting on this fact that there's this part of me that feels like me, and then there's this other part of me that just happens subconsciously but doesn't feel like me at all. Like how many times during a day do we do things or think things or say things that doesn't feel like us, that doesn't feel good to us? And I felt compelled to write a list because I was thinking, there must be something holding me back from being what feels like me each and every moment of the day if I can experience this contrast, right? So I started writing down all of the things that I notice in my everyday life that doesn't feel like me. And to my surprise, that list was long, and that is when I saw that most of the points I could put on that list happened in solitude, inside of me, in my mood and my thoughts and my actions during a day. And it is self-abandonment or self-betrayal because it doesn't feel like me. What is self-betrayal really? It is when your thoughts, acts, emotions doesn't align with who you feel like you truly are, right? That is how we betray ourselves, when we feel differently because we act differently or think differently. And that's why we keep saying, that wasn't me, or this doesn't feel like me. There's a part of us that knows that, right? So I connected with that part of me that knows who I am. My soul, I would say. And I just started putting down all of the situations during an everyday, typical day that doesn't feel like me. And there were so many things there. Like, I don't feel like myself when I let myself get stressed about the tasks at hand or how little time I have, instead of knowing that if I relax and I feel supported and that everything will work itself out for me, that is what feels good to me, and that is how I get things done more efficiently. Or I don't feel like myself when I'm on my way to work on the bus, and I just don't even notice my surroundings because I am somewhere else in my mind thinking about all of the things I need to do that day or something that happened yesterday. That doesn't feel like me. What feels like me instead of that is when I just take that time to myself and look out the window and I appreciate my surroundings and I'm just present for it. Just letting myself have that time to myself to just enjoy what I see and relax a bit. I don't feel like myself when I'm worried about what value I have to bring to a connection with a friend, instead of just trusting that my presence is enough for that connection to build. Like I get these thoughts that if I'm not in the right mood or energy, I won't be of service or of value to other people in the way I truly want, and that sometimes can lead to me not socializing when it's really what I need, when it's really what's good for me, but I feel like I cannot bring a lot of stuff to the table, kind of. That doesn't feel like me. What feels like me instead of that is when I just trust that two friends can meet without expectations, without being in the right mood, without knowing what the day will bring, but just showing up for each other. And let that connection take care of itself. I don't feel like myself when I am almost afraid to meet other people's gaze, like when I'm afraid to talk to strangers or to notice strangers and I just walk around in my own bubble getting through my day. What feels like me instead of that is when I truly appreciate other people and when I like getting to know strangers and small talk with them and just bring joy into someone else's day or allow them to bring joy into my day. That's when I feel like myself. And what that did for me, just reflecting on these things, what doesn't feel like me during a day and what actually feels like me instead in those situations, it just made me really understand and see how much that matters and that should matter to us, because it's not just about the big things that happen. All of these small things that happen during a day, that's what truly makes up our lives. Because those small moments may be small in themselves, but how many of them do we have during a day? And what I also realized is why I actually call it self-betrayal is that this part of me that I was talking about, that knows what is me and what is not me, this part also knows that every thought and every action coming from me in these small situations in every day, they are choices. Everything I say, think, or do, they are my choices. But in these moments of self-betrayal, I'm not aware of the fact that I am making choices. And there's a reason for that as well. There's a reason why it's so subtle and so hard to notice self-betrayal that happens in solitude. It's so much easier to notice when we are people-pleasing or putting other people ahead of ourselves in situations, because that is so visible and obvious. But the hidden self-betrayal that happens when we are alone, that comes from all of these accumulated beliefs and habits and experiences that we have had in our lives that just together program our mind and body to react to things in a very automatic way. So it doesn't feel like in the moment that we're actually making a choice, because our system is making that choice for us, you see. What have I been trained to believe and think and act like in these situations from my own previous life experiences, from what I have been trained and taught that I'm supposed to care about, that I'm supposed to be doing, and all of that. It's just programmed so that we don't have to be consciously aware of these choices. Our system just makes them for us. And the opposite of self-betrayal, what is that? Well, that is staying true to yourself. And I like to picture it like this. When we are truly true to ourselves, it means that all the parts of us, which is mind, body, and soul, all of these three parts are connected to each other. They believe the same thing. They are aligned, and so they work towards the same goal. Now, the soul is the part of us that knows who we are. The soul we can look at as the part that says, this isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. There's just a knowing. We can't really explain it, but there's that part of us that knows who we are, that knows what feels true and right to us. But then the two other parts, the mind and the body, they are the ones that are programmed from old experiences and from the society we have been brought up in. So those parts are the parts that work on habit, like automatic reactions and responses to everyday experiences. So when we find these things that doesn't feel like us, that must mean that either the mind or the body, or both of them together, are believing, saying, thinking, or doing differently than the soul. Because then we are not aligned. So when we are true to ourselves, body, mind, and soul are aligned, connected, and working towards the same goal. When we don't feel like ourselves, one of these parts at least has to be missing, and it can't be the soul, because the soul is the part that always knows. So maybe your mind is constantly analyzing situations. I should be doing this. I should be feeling this. Life is supposed to be hard, blah, 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 all of these things. Or the body has these automatic responses and reactions to what happens to you because how it reacted previously when you had a similar experience. But the body and the mind, they don't always act in the way that your soul feels. They don't always act like you. Now, that doesn't go to say that your body or your mind wants to hurt you. They're actually trying to protect you, but they are trying to protect you from getting hurt, from being left behind, or from falling behind, even if these are things that don't really matter to you, or other things matter most. For example, if you're people-pleasing, that is a part of you that's trying to protect you from being left out of other people, right? Or if you shut yourself down from connecting to other people, it might be because your body and your mind has experienced getting hurt in the past. So they don't want you to be able to get disappointed again, to get your heart broken again. So they protect you from that. But your soul wants connection. Your soul wants to experience the love, even if it might not happen in the way your mind or body believes it should happen, right? So that's why when we start doing these things to protect ourselves, it starts feeling bad. It starts feeling like we are not connected to who we truly are. And that is the reason. Because the soul knows what is best for you. The soul knows what you want. And it doesn't always come in the protection that your mind or body believes that you need. So, the question is then, how do we get the body and the mind to be aligned with the soul more? Well, if the thing is that we are unaware of making these choices because they are just programmed in us and they are made for us, kind of, by automatic responses, then the whole clue must to be aware of that before it happens. We must get aware of what feels like us and what doesn't feel like us. Because when we become aware of that, we also remember and really, really understand that these are choices being made by us each and every day. And the clue is, once you realize that these are choices you are making, that the only question is whether or not you are making that choice from your soul, from conscious decision and from what feels like you, or if you're making it automatically from old habits, beliefs, and programming that doesn't really serve you or feel like you anymore. Once you realize that I'm making choices either on purpose that makes me feel good, or I'm making choices by old programming that keeps me further away from who I really am and how I want to feel, of course, we would go and consciously make these choices more often. So how do you become aware of that then? I would suggest you to sit down and reflect. Bring a piece of paper and a pen and start writing, I don't feel like myself when, and see what comes up to you. And the other side, you write, I feel like myself the most when I do this, I act like that, when I feel supported instead of stressed, when I meet people with openness and love instead of shutting myself down or being afraid of getting hurt, when I show up for work feeling supported and smiling to other people and making the work environment a good place to be in instead of contributing to everyone feeling stressed and out of themselves. Whatever it might be, take a look at your everyday situations and feel, when do you act like someone else? When do you not feel like yourself? And the easier way to put it is, when do you feel good and when do you feel bad? Because that's the whole thing behind it. When you act aligned with your soul, when your soul and your body and your mind is working towards the same goal, that will always feel good to you, because there is no parts left behind or trying to work against that then. But if one of these parts are working against the other parts, that feels bad. So if you find it hard or big to ask the question, what feels like me and what doesn't, you could just go about it that way. When do I feel good? When don't I feel good? It's all about allowing yourself instead of disallowing yourself. Because in every moment you don't feel good, you are disallowing some part of yourself to believe what the soul is believing. That's what it's all about. And when you start getting to know who you really are, because this is how you get to know yourself. This feels like me. This doesn't feel like me. Yesterday, when I was in that situation, I acted that way and I didn't feel like me. What would be the better choice in that situation? When would I handle that situation as my true self? What would I say? What would I do? How would I feel? That gives you so much valuable information, and you start seeing how many subconscious choices you do take each and every day that just brings you further away from the core of who you are. Even if it's small, really small decisions, really small acts and situations, together they make up your day. So they are so important. And once you have gotten the bigger picture of what feels like you and what doesn't feel like you can even start preparing in advance for the meeting of the different situations coming up in your day. You can prepare to be yourself. When I go to work, how does the true me act, say, think, and feel? When I am going to that family gathering, what does it feel like to be true to myself? Who am I when I am myself in these situations? Just by reflecting on that before entering the upcoming situations of your day, you are reminding yourself that these are choices you can make. So you can either make the choices that make you feel good and stay true to yourself, or you can let the whole thing run on autopilot and leave your joy or happiness up to chance. Who you are is the one that feels joy and happiness, that feels peaceful and calm. Whatever feels right to you, what feels good to you, that's who you are. So start asking yourself before you go to work, before you go meet someone, before you do anything. How will I feel the most like myself when I enter this situation? That will make you take the right action, take the right choice that brings you closer to who you are. And that is how you stay true to yourself in life. We cannot disregard these small things because our lives consist of mostly small things. And the smaller they are and the more habitual and everyday they are, the harder it is to notice them until we start really asking these questions. When do you feel the most like yourself? And in what area of your life today do you feel like you're someone else? Do you feel like you are not true to yourself? What choices can you be making tomorrow that actually feels like you? There is so much freedom and joy in that. Thank you.